Greg, thank you so much for sitting down with me today.
Of course.
Can you start by just telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do here at Quick?
Absolutely. The road to Quick has been a very interesting one. A real influential time for me was when I decided to go from finance into the medical realm. I wanted to impact people in a very meaningful, prolific kind of way, and of course the medical field provides opportunities to do that. From there, I was able to start what I would call a pioneering concept of employee care, and did that for another 8 or 9 years. And from there, I launched StrongerWork, which is my foray into employee support and mental fitness on the job, at the workplace. So I've been able to do that. So a long, windy road to get here, but I've been with Quick for about 2.5 years now, and have been able to grow with them, to learn from them, and to engage these employees in this fast and furious startup entrepreneurial world that we live in.
Yeah. Well, I know we love having you, and the main discussion topic we wanted to talk about today is in light of it being Mental Health Awareness Month this month. And when we were talking about this earlier, you brought up the topic of mental fitness, and I found it just fascinating and a different way to look at things. So can you just briefly touch on what mental fitness is?
I'll be happy to do that. Let me preface it with two things. For one thing, after we talked about it that day, like the next day on LinkedIn, Simon Sinek had a post on mental fitness. So he stole my stuff.
Yeah.
He owes me a wad of cash and a lot of thank yous for that. However, I'm going to let it slide for now. Mental fitness is different than mental health. And for one thing, mental health is not a bad concept. It's not a bad word. But in real time, on the ground, it's amazing what a bad rap mental health gets. When somebody's talking about getting mental health services, historically, it becomes a source of awkwardness or shame or fear of the unknown, or I failed, a sense of failure, I should have done better, shoulda, coulda, woulda. And so it becomes a topic that needs to be avoided. Mental fitness, however, is actually the exact opposite of that. When you take the example of physical fitness, nobody's going to feel shame for going to the gym. They're not going to be made fun of, they're not going to be derided. All these things are seen as a strength when somebody decides to do something about their fitness by going to the gym to work out. Mental fitness is much the same thing. We want to go with momentum. We want to go with a proactive stance. We want to go with the expectation that it's not only normal to be fit, but it's extremely advantageous to be fit. It's something that people can really embrace without a whole lot of shame, without a whole lot of fear. All of those things start to fade, and instead it's recognized as a strength. And I think people will really start to embrace this.
Yeah. So can you describe some of the strategies behind mental fitness and how they're different than some more general mental health concepts?
Mental fitness is very much an opportunity to really establish a great baseline. One of the greatest examples of doing this is by learning how to conceptualize and establish boundaries. So boundaries are something that we all set in our lives, but we don't really think about what we're willing to take, not take, whether it's a job, whether it's in a relationship, whether it's just me and my family situation, especially if it was unhealthy. All of those things we have to think about and establish. It needs to be an intentional step. However, most of us don't. Most of us just try and wing it all of our lives, and we don't even know what to call it. It's a matter of setting a discipline that sets a boundary that you can do all sorts of things with. But that's done in a more proactive stance, and mental fitness is a better way to do that than waiting for that cataclysmic, oh well, things are so bad, I guess I better get to somebody's office to talk to them.
Yeah, it's like before you've reached the point where you need to take that additional step, this is a step you can kind of take beforehand to possibly alleviate a lot of these stressors before they become a huge problem.
Absolutely right. It can be used for prevention, it can be used for alleviation, coping, and a lot of times overcoming as well. And a lot of times when we're in that bad spot, when we finally do get mental health, somebody in the realm to help us out with, it's already so hard of an endeavor to do that.
Yeah.
This makes it so much more effective and easier to do.
Yeah. And so you spoke a little bit about the idea of setting boundaries, which is something I personally struggle with. I'm sure every human struggles with. If we keep that as the example, what are some exercises, let's say, I could do to improve my mental fitness in that area?
Absolutely. It's just a matter of establishing habits, and patterns are powerful. So we usually hone in on the bad patterns that we have. What we don't understand is, though, a lot of those can be either minimized, or we can even convert those, because bad patterns and bad situations, bad experiences can teach us a whole lot. By our mistakes, a lot of times we can see the wrong way to do it. If nothing else, those things can be really helpful in teaching us that if that is the wrong way, what would be the right way? And when you first establish awareness, you can do all sorts of things with that. If you never have the awareness of it, you really can't do anything. So having awareness of the need to set boundaries, and especially the consequences of not doing so for a motivation, are great things to be able to do. So when you're learning to establish boundaries, you learn how to work with proper people. A professional is a great person to work with, or another neutral third party. It's just a matter of getting a little practice behind you, having learned some lessons, continuing to learn lessons, and having some good people at your side that are very helpful.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned the awareness part of that, because I recently have dove a lot more into meditation, and that's a huge thing that you learn there. But even just allowing yourself to be okay, recognizing when those moments do happen, that's building that muscle up of that awareness. And you didn't set a boundary maybe, and now you're feeling the stress, and taking that one moment to just pause and be like, okay, this is a moment that I need to recognize that next time the boundary is going to be whatever this is. So I find that really interesting. Since we have such a large audience of freelancers on our channels, I'd like to ask you about a specific scenario that they might be running into in the hospitality industry where they could really utilize mental fitness to help alleviate whatever experience they're going through.
So I think about our freelancers, and especially when they are showing up into an established team environment, when other people work before, they get each other, they know the nuances, they know when so-and-so is having a good day or a bad day, good shift, bad shift. A lot of times our freelancers are not going to have that luxury. So the better boundaries they have in dealing with people, with communication, relationships, conflict resolution, even some de-escalation sorts of strategies like that, once again, sounds a lot more complex than it is. It's really not. It's just knowing what you will and will not, how you will or will not handle certain situations if they come our way, and how you'll do those things. That could be a great thing for our freelancers to know.
Yeah. Is there anything that they can do to build those muscles kind of at home themselves, or is that something, or is there maybe a specific aspect of mental fitness that you think is best to work on with a professional?
Well, talking about boundaries again, of course there are more aspects to mental fitness than just boundaries. However, since we're talking about it, it's such a handy thing. I'd say absolutely they can do it at home. Even starting out with a list of things that are bothering me about myself, things that I don't like that I'm doing that make me feel depressed or anxious, overwhelmed, angry, all those things. If you can start to even have just a simple little checklist on that, that is a great place to start. And we all can kind of get a beat on ourselves, at least to that extent. And then whether it's by ourselves or starting to get some help or assistance in doing something with those things, we can go places like that.
That's such a perfect segue, because that was going to be my next question, is kind of where to start all of this. Is there any just final thoughts as we're kind of wrapping up on any advice to get started, or misconceptions, things to avoid you'd like to share?
Absolutely. The biggest problem with getting any kind of mental fitness going, or just mental health in general, is us. Even if we're stopping and writing these things down and just starting to formulate a game plan on what's wrong so then I can do something about it, if we're still being cruel and unforgiving to ourselves on that stuff, we're not going to get anywhere. However, if we can give ourselves a chance, a little grace, a little mercy to go ahead and be human and just start talking about this sort of stuff, It's creating the right mindset to go places. It's amazing how much progress you can start to make if you can just start off with that.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you so much. I know you're such a help to me personally and the rest of us here at Quick, but this was such a great conversation, super interesting topic. So
Thanks,
I
Taylor.
appreciate you. Yes, thank you.
Appreciate it. Happy to be here.